In this video, I'm gonna share how I went from a skeptic to Bitcoin believer, and I'm gonna share my Bitcoin conversion story coming up. What's going on, everyone, and welcome to The Journey of Finance. Here on this channel, we talk about how to achieve financial independence, and I'm also sharing my journey on the road to FI as well. So if that is something that you're into and you haven't done it yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button for weekly videos on how to achieve FI. I'm super excited about growing this community, and so do me a favor, let's get to 1,000 subs before the end of this year. Would love for you guys to help me out in that. So if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe and also share this content, share this channel with anyone that you feel like it'll help, and let's get to 1,000 subs by the end of this year. Now let's talk about why I'm sharing my story today. Now, cryptocurrency has been around for a little over a decade now, with Bitcoin first coming onto the scene in 2009. So this is a still relatively new technology, but if you turn on the news or you watch any sort of finance news channel, you'll see that Bitcoin has been coming up a lot lately. So the reason why I want to share my story today is because I wish I would have had someone a couple of years ago or even just last year say, hey, Cedric, you need to look into this technology. You need to look into what cryptocurrency is, and you need to look into Bitcoin and start investing in it. Now, my aim in this video isn't to convert anyone else to become a Bitcoin believer if you aren't one already, but I do want to be the voice to say, hey, if you haven't really taken an honest look at what Bitcoin is and the technology behind it, then you definitely want to do that because we're still in the early stages. This reminds me a lot of when the internet was starting to become more mainstream in the late 90s, early 2000s. And I still remember that time because I was in high school, and I just remember how fast that technology was adopted in every household. I remember when I got my first computer in the late 90s, I was one of the few that I knew that actually had a home computer with the internet. And fast forward a couple years later, everybody is online, everybody's using the internet. And so this technology, in a matter of just a few years, went from barely used by the common person to everyone is using it. Fast forward 2 decades later, now we have the internet in our hands. We have the internet in our pockets through our phones, and this technology is something that we just can't live without. We've built our lives around the internet, and I believe that this new technology of digital currency and Bitcoin and the blockchain and all the other things that comes with it is sort of a new revolution of technology that has yet to really hit mainstream, but give it a couple of years and it's going to explode, and our lives are in many ways going to be revolving around this technology. That is my belief. And so the reason why I'm making this video is we're still in the early stages, just like the internet in the late 90s. For those of you who have been following cryptocurrency a little bit and you've been following the movement of Bitcoin and the price action, and you feel like, hey, it's a little too late, the price has run up too high, all I have to say is we're still in the early stages, and still give it an honest look and definitely consider becoming a part of this revolution, if you will. You definitely won't regret it in 10 years. So that's the reason why I want to share my story. And in no way is this financial advice or me saying you need to do this, but I'm just strongly encouraging you to at least research. So let's talk about how I stumbled across Bitcoin. To be very honest, I think I've been living under a rock the last couple of years because I don't really remember coming across Bitcoin that much in the past few years. Definitely 2 years ago or beyond, I don't remember hearing anything about cryptocurrency. And I think that's because I've been sort of in my own bubble because I was transitioning from moving from the States to Korea, and I was really just focused on just hustling and grinding and really trying to build my businesses and building my other YouTube channel. I don't know, I just wasn't around people who talked about it, who mentioned it, and I didn't really follow the news that much at that point in time. I just sort of had my own tunnel vision and my way of always doing things and my financial plans of investing in the market and eventually buying rental properties. I think it was last year in 2020 where I first started to hear Bitcoin and cryptocurrency come up, probably just on like media or the internet and things that I was reading. But my first real encounter with it was one of my close friends here. Last year, he got into investing in cryptocurrency, but out of nowhere, he just started talking about it, and he was just super excited about investing in this. And I remember whenever we'd meet up, he would just always talk about it. And this was something that, I guess to me at the time, I was very skeptical because it sounded a little shady. It was something that I wasn't used to hearing, and I was just like, you know what, it's probably just a fad. If my friend, who is a very smart guy and he's very tech savvy, if he's this excited about this technology and he's at this point, he's telling me you need to look into it, you need to start putting some money into it, I was like, you know what, let me go ahead and do some research. So I remember at the very end of last year, I was like, okay, I'm gonna start looking into it, but I didn't have a sense of urgency because again, I was a little skeptical and I was like, whenever I have time, I'll look into it. Fast forward a few months and we're at the very beginning of this year, 2021. I decided, you know what? Let me go ahead and give this an honest look because I'm starting to see people talk about Bitcoin and I'm starting to see people on Instagram talk about XRP and this and that going to the moon. And I'm like, what the heck is what's going on here? I think that was a sign for me to at least give it an honest look because people that never talked about finances or I've never seen talk about finances are over here talking about crypto. Around February and March of this year, I started to just Google what cryptocurrency was and I started watching YouTube videos. I quickly discovered that this was like a whole alternate universe of people and just culture that I had no idea existed. So after a few weeks of researching earlier this year, I think I finally got a grasp on what Bitcoin was, at least generally, and what Bitcoin meant for digital currency and money exchange and what it meant for Bitcoin to be a digital asset. At this point, I'm like, you know what? I have no idea if the price of it's gonna go up or if this is a future technology that will be here, but at least let me go ahead and try to put some money into it. So in March of this year, I decided to dip my toes in the water a little bit. So I downloaded Coinbase, which is one of the biggest digital currency exchanges, and I decided to put just a little bit into Bitcoin because I just wanted to see how this worked. So I invested in March of this year, $13 worth of Bitcoin. The only reason why I put such a small amount was because I was honestly just very scared that I might screw something up. I was able to see, okay, this is a pretty easy process. And then a few days later, I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and get a little bit more serious about this because I'm still researching. I don't quite understand it 100%, but let me put 500 bucks in here. Now, this is money that I'm not afraid of losing, worst case scenario. And I knew the likelihood of me losing all of it was very slim. So I put in 500 bucks and I was able to see the minute by minute fluctuations in price. And I'm like, wow, this moves really fast because in the traditional stock markets, money doesn't move as much as quickly. After a few days and I'm still constantly researching, I was like, you know what? Let me go ahead and put 1,000 into here. So I put 1,000 bucks into it. As what happens to a lot of people who starts to dip their toes into cryptocurrency, they start to see that gains can be made very quickly. Now, that's not the whole reason why I got into it, but it was something that I could see the appeal of because you could literally put in money and within a few minutes, it could skyrocket, you know? So this is such a crazy concept for me. So if you've been following Bitcoin and the price action earlier this year, you would know that the time that I decided to actually start getting in, which was March, April of this year, was the time where Bitcoin's price reached an all-time high. So in the middle of April, by the time that Bitcoin reached its all-time high, I had about 10 grand into Bitcoin. Little did I know that I pretty much purchased at the top. So after Bitcoin reached its all-time high, for those of you who remember, within a few days, Bitcoin's price started going down. And then within a few weeks, I think it retraced down to like the 40,000 mark, the 30,000 mark from its all-time high of 64,000. This is my first introduction into volatility in the crypto space. So here I am with this new digital asset that I'm trying to learn more about, and I've already put 10 grand into it. At this point, my portfolio was down in the red, a couple of $1,000s, and I was faced with two choices. I was like, I could either take the L and cash out and then put that money back into my safe investments, like in the stock market, or I could just ride it out or hold on for dear life, as we call it in the crypto space. And of course, me being someone who doesn't want to lose any money, I decided to wait it out. Now, I want to mention the timing of everything because, again, I got in when everything was hot, things had already ran up, and most of the gains that people who discovered and invested into Bitcoin and crypto a couple of years before, or even the previous year, they made explosive astronomical gains with their money, but me, I came in at the top, which meant after the price went down, my portfolio went down, but those that invested a lot of money years prior, they were still well into the green. So I was hurting in a different way than, say, other people who already made tremendous gains. Now, throughout the summer, the market had retraced back and Bitcoin was swimming around $30,000, $40,000, and it went all the way down to, I think, around $28,000 at some point in the summer. And I'm over here, I'm just holding, right? Because I'm like, you know what? At this point, I've researched enough to know that Bitcoin is still in this early infancy stages, and I really do feel like the price is gonna go back up. Now, as my portfolio is bleeding out, I'm still doing a lot of research and I'm putting in hours upon hours, really every single week, trying to learn about not only what Bitcoin is now and what cryptocurrency is now, but really the implications of what this technology will be in the future. I discovered a couple of different things. One, Bitcoin is a super pristine asset. It is one of the best asset classes that you can hold, at least long term. It's extremely volatile right now. There's still a lot of people who are betting against it, but after looking into what it is, I believe that it's a pristine asset. Not only that, but it's extremely scarce, because in the existence of Bitcoin, there will only ever be 21 million Bitcoins that will be mined. And that means there's only a limited supply, which once the demand rises, the price and the value of Bitcoin will also rise. But the interesting thing is, it's estimated at least a couple of million Bitcoin that's been lost, whether it's lost in transit because it was sent to a wrong address, or it was on a cold storage and couldn't remember where that cold storage is, or you couldn't remember the password. So there's tons of Bitcoin that's already lost. And so there's gonna be less than 21 million ever in circulation, which means that as the demand rises, the value of it will be even greater because there's gonna be less supply. So anyways, we'll get into that in another video, but the point is it's extremely scarce, and as more people are adopting this technology, not only on the retail side, but as institutions and even countries, as they begin to adopt this currency or this asset, it's only going to explode the value of Bitcoin. So with all of these realizations, at that point, I became a believer in Bitcoin. You could say I had a conversion experience because I realized that Bitcoin will never be at this price again, thinking long term, because in the future, a few years down the road, 10 years, 20 years down the road, the value of Bitcoin is expected to be far greater than where it is today. So I realized I needed to accumulate as much Bitcoin as I can. What I ended up doing throughout the summer, as my portfolio was bleeding and as I was learning the valuable lessons of hodling, I started to buy up more while the price was still low, because I did expect for the price to rise up. I didn't know when, but I just knew that where we were in the summer was only temporary. So fast forward to today, and really in the past 2 months or so, finally my portfolio climbed out of the red. As I was able to lower my cost basis because I kept buying at lower prices, and finally the price of Bitcoin began to move up in a really amazing way, and it reached a new all-time high recently, and it's still projected over the next few months to create even more all-time highs, which I believe it's gonna do that. So needless to say, I'm quite happy with where I am now, and I'm very happy with my decision of getting into Bitcoin and cryptocurrency when I did, because again, there will never be a time like this where we'll be able to get in at these prices. Now, would it have been great if I would have discovered Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and became a believer even a year ago? Yes, but I can't look back to the past. All I can do is just look to the future and make decisions for me today that will hopefully put me in a much better position in the future. So here are my final thoughts. If you haven't researched cryptocurrency or Bitcoin just yet, and you feel like you don't understand it or you're even against it, I do encourage you to definitely take an honest look, do some research, And I guarantee you, there's a good likelihood that you're going to like what you see, that what you see and discover will make a lot of sense. And I'm gonna be covering a lot more crypto related content on this channel. This isn't gonna become a cryptocurrency channel by any means. We're still gonna be talking about different ways to achieve financial independence through different strategies, but we are gonna talk a little bit more about Bitcoin and some of the other cryptocurrency developments, if you will, and how that can be part of your overall strategy. And that was my Bitcoin conversion story. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it, and hopefully you found some value in my story and really just me trying to be honest with where I am when it comes to my journey on achieving financial independence. I'm curious to hear your thoughts about cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, and this whole digital currency revolution. Definitely leave your thoughts in the comments below, because I just want to see what the market sentiment is and see if this is something that you're into or if it's part of your financial plan. Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. Hit that like button if you found any value in this video, and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. And I would love for you guys to help me out. I want this channel to reach 1,000 subs by the end of this year. I think we can do it, and I could definitely do it with your help. That way we can grow this community together and we can all level up financially. Would love your help in that. Anyways, I'll see you all in the next video. Peace.